The Great American Retro Road Trip, a celebration of roadside Americana by Rolando Pujol, will take you on a fascinating trip across the United States to see roadside attractions, vintage signs, fast food relics, and more. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and this is Some Books Considered. Rolando Pujol has established himself as a journalist in the newsrooms of several newspapers and television stations in New York City over the past 3 decades. We'll learn about his project, The Retrologist, and how it led to the book, The Great American Road Trip, a celebration of roadside Americana. Rolando, welcome to Some Books Considered.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, first of all, I'm curious about how you became interested in studying all these kind of quirky things and their history.
Well, I think it's something that was in me, I think, from childhood. I think early road trips that I took with my parents around the country, in particular along I-95 between New York and Miami, and various stops along the way. I quickly figured out at a young age that I was more interested in the road, in the journey, than in the destination. That to me was where the excitement was. And as I got older and I was in my 20s, I began to take some solo or with friends road trips around the country. And my interest and level of fascination, if you will, in this only grew. But it really wasn't until the era of social media in the teens, with the rise of Instagram and other platforms, that I began to share more about this, began to escalate the amount of research I was doing, and discovered that there was really this big community of people both sharing this kind of content, but also curious about it and wanting to learn more about it. And one thing led to another. My social media presence grew, and my investment in this also deepened, and my love for it only deepened. And one fine day, that dream happens. You get a outreach from a publisher, and they're like, "Hey, we love what you're doing. Would you be interested in writing a book?" And those knocks of opportunity don't come along every day. So when they do, you've got to open that door.
So this was an outgrowth of your Retrologist project. So tell us more about it.
Yes. So the Retrologist was a more kind of specific concept that neologism I came up with to describe what I do. So retro, obviously, looking back, nostalgic, ologist, sort of an expert in nostalgia and in classic roadside, sort of a little catch-all term that I came up with. That was initially a website that was powered by a Tumblr where I would share photos and stories, and that eventually had various ancillary sort of tentacles, including the Instagram, other social platforms, and starting in 2022, a Substack newsletter, which I think was probably the first Substack newsletter with a focus on roadside Americana. And I remember people told me, people aren't going to be interested in a newsletter about this stuff. And I'm like, you just wait. Let's give this a shot. And sure enough, there was a lot of interest. And so that has grown as well. And so that's really what the project is. It's sort of an outgrowth of my interest in this stuff, a more sort of putting a brand on this kind of journey of discovery and exploration along the American roadside.
Well, before we describe the book and share a little bit of the information in it, I'm again curious about your background and how your family's history contributed to your interest in Americana.
Absolutely. My parents are Cuban immigrants. They came here, my father first in the late 60s. My mother followed a couple of years later in 1971. And I think what made these places very special for me and my family as recent immigrants to this country was the fact that we always felt a great sense of welcome in these roadside stops, and also in like these various national chains where they sort of give you almost like a baptism of sorts into America. You step into a Howard Johnson's, one of the old restaurants, and it doesn't matter who you are, you're welcome. You're made to feel at home, and you feel that you're part of something bigger, something exciting, and something distinctly American. So I think my love for these places began early because these places were sort of a tie to the overall American experience. That's why they hold a deep place in my heart. And I pass like a Shoney's or a Bob's Big Boy or something like that, and there's this instant tug back to those early welcoming experiences that to me were formative in my sense for what being an American is.
Well, describe this book to us, because there's so much information here. You had to organize it somehow. So how did you put that together?
What we did was we broke the book into sections, into 10 chapters, from New England all the way down to California. California got its own chapter just because I'd done so much work in California. We broke then up into regions. And within those regions, we broke it down by category. So we had what I like to call roadside quirks. So those are roadside giants and quirky attractions and mimetic architecture, buildings that are shaped like the product they sell. Then from there, we did mainstays of Main Street, which are traditional mom and pop businesses that you will see on a main street. We had On With a Show, which is focused on movie theaters, or even things that have to do broadly with entertainment or even broadcasting, television station buildings and transmitter buildings, which are some of the most beautiful places you'll find on a trip. Easy to overlook, but nice to look at. Sweet shops and, Cheers, which is my little section for bars and taverns and that sort of thing. So within those categories, I sought to organize all this information, and it was an awful lot of information. And we've got around 1,000 pictures in this 320-page book. And I remember when I began the project, I had a feeling that, I feel that I've been posting material along these lines for so long on social media that, this book is written. I quickly discovered the book was far from written. And there was a great deal more work to do, and in particular, a great deal more travel to do.
Well, one of the things you discuss in the book is that, yes, you've tried to document as many of these things as possible, but some of them are disappearing.
Yes.
So it's important that they are documented before they're gone.
It's so true. I can't tell you the number of times that I've written about something in this book, and our deadline was December of 24, that have since disappeared, that they're gone, or that they're endangered. Just now, if there is a future edition of this book, which I hope there is, I'm going to have to update an entry from Los Angeles. Cole's which is an old French dip restaurant. It is one of two contenders for the title of the inventor of the French dip. They just announced over this week and confirmed yesterday by news sources that they're going out of business. They opened in the early 20th century. They have deep and rich history. Yet another place in the book that was still going back in December that is now no more. And that's really, really, to me, incredibly heartbreaking, but it's a reminder for the importance of writing this down and getting it published. Because you could say that sharing these places on social media and Instagram and Facebook, it's a great immediate way to document and to reach an audience, but these platforms may not be around in 10, 20, 30 years. But the beautiful thing is a book will, we hope, always be around. And so people will be able to pick this up in 20, 30, 50 years and know about places that I'm sure a great many more will be gone by then.
One of the things I find interesting personally, and also what I saw in your book, is about the architecture of many of these buildings that speak to different styles of American architecture. And just things like when a building's been repurposed and it's now something else, you can still recognize what it was originally. Like I'll be driving down the road and I'll see this particular slope of this roof. That used to be a Stuckey's, even though it might be, who knows, an RV sales place now.
Right. That's right. That is actually one of, sort of call it roadside archaeology, right? And it is kind of a fun game to explore, but it also tells you a great deal about history and about architectural and retail trends to look at what once worked and what has still survived. One particular example of this that we've seen in a very interesting, positive way is the Pizza Hut's re-embrace of its old red roof restaurants. Starting in 2019, a lot of these legacy restaurants that have been around for 30, 40 years, they have been reimagined in a nostalgic way as Pizza Hut classics, where what they've done is they've brought back the old logo, the old signage. The interior experience has been dialed back 2 or 3 decades to bring back the red booths and the faux Tiffany chandeliers that say Pizza Hut and the the red plastic cups, and that experience that was so distinctly Pizza Hut that they went away from, they've gone back to it. But the key thing is to have that experience in that building. But yet I can't tell you the number of times that I've also passed a former Pizza Hut that's now a chiropractor's office or a used car dealership, or goodness knows what that might be. Another fine example, of course, is McDonald's with their old mansard buildings, the hip roof buildings that began to emerge in the late 60s and 70s. Most of those are now gone. McDonald's has moved away from that look, but yet you can find like repurposed ones around the country, and you know right away that used to be a McDonald's. There's no question about it. So I find that to be very interesting from purely a curiosity perspective and an amusing perspective, but also it's just intellectually kind of fascinating, and it kind of sends you down these interesting little rabbit holes of research.
Another big part of the book is signage.
Yes.
And you have signage from national brands that have changed over the year, but a lot just creative things that mom and pop stores have done.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And that is a great reminder of what used to be such an important part of the mom and pop experience, was the way that you put your foot out there, right? And that was through your storefront. That was perhaps the biggest part of your marketing that you could control. So a decision was made to make it as compelling as possible, to invest in it, because you were starting this business not with the idea that it was going to be around for a few years and you move on to something else, but hopefully it'd be something that would live on for decades and be passed on to your children and grandchildren. So the signs were cleverly designed, and there was neon, and there was attention to detail, the entire storefront experience, the interior as well. And we don't see as much of that right now. There is sort of been a move away from that sort of artistic, thoughtful approach to things that are more practical, and in part, it's understandable. Society has changed. Marketing can be done in many other ways, through social media, through our phones, through apps. It's not perhaps as important, but I still think that that shops are and shop owners are intelligent, and it's worth the investment to think about their presentation, the way that they look on the street, because I feel a good storefront ennobles and enriches a downtown. It adds a flavor. And we all know that feeling when a classic business that you always looked forward to seeing, that was always kind of there, either changes their sign or goes out of business. You lose something that you'll never quite get back. So I think this is very, very important, even if it might be seen as sort of an outmoded form of marketing.
And if the signs are lucky enough to survive decades, it also becomes that testament to the times. You know, you'd say, well, this has a 40s look, this has a 50s look, et cetera.
Exactly right. I mean, they are remarkable time capsules, which is why I'm a big advocate in trying to keep things the way that they were, so that we can enjoy that period. We can learn a lot from the way things used to be. And many businesses, many sign companies today are inspired by these classic businesses. I mentioned in the book a company called Noble Signs in New York City, which is in the process of when a client, a business hires them, they want them to create an overall scheme that is nostalgic in its look and feel. And so they're bringing back a lot of this flavor to the streets of New York, which is just I think just a wonderful thing to see.
You mentioned, some of these signs, we remember from our childhood. I remember those old, I think it was Holiday Inn signs that kind of looked like Hollywood, or they were like a movie marquee or something.
That's right. Yeah. Those were absolutely wonderful, and they were called the Great Signs. And Holiday Inn sadly made the decision in the early '80s to sort of go away from that look. I guess at that point it was perhaps seen as a little tacky or a little schlocky or a little left over from another time. But while they haven't gone back to it, the celebration of these signs and the love for these signs has only increased over the years. And you can find a remarkably preserved and restored example of those great Holiday Inn signs in the courtyard of the American Sign Museum in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is just a great destination, period, this museum, to see these kinds of signs and recreated storefronts. But just to see a great sign, back outside under the sun, it's worth the travel and then whatever trouble you have in getting to Cincinnati. So.
Another aspect of the book are roadside attractions. And I was thinking in some cases you almost have a crossover between, advertising signs and roadside attractions, because there would be these huge figurines like the Muffler Man or whatever that become sort of iconic as you're traveling. Not technically a roadside attraction in that it wasn't, meant to be a tourist thing, but in some ways they overlap.
They absolutely do. So, a good example of that is one of my favorite places along the road is south of the border, which is off I-95 between North and on the border of North and South Carolina, which really leads into that, both in terms of the iconography at the place itself, but then also through the billboards that you'll see on either side of 95 for hundreds of miles, creating a sense of excitement and anticipation for the visit. A modern twist on that, I think, is Buc-ee's, which creates a sort of like, you've got this cute little character, you see billboards with him all along the road, but then when you actually get there, it's not only a great experience, it's fun, and there's a lot of shopping to do, and you can take care of a lot of your business very, very efficiently, over 100 gas pumps. But you go away with it feeling just like, I did something kind of cool. I didn't just stop to get gas. I had this overall experience. So, that's a good example of these classic roadside techniques being relevant to new generations.
Well, there's so much in here I could talk with you for hours, but I do want to cover one more category before we move on.
Yes.
That's some of these iconic sort of broadcasting sites.
Oh, yes. I adore these. And I have a particular weakness for these because like you, I work in a quote unquote, the business, so I seek them out. And there are some really gorgeous ones around the country. One that I give a 2-page spread to in the book is the WMCA sign, which is a little radio station. At least the building is tiny, the transmitter building in New Jersey, in Kearney. But this was an iconic station back in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. It helped fuel Beatlemania in America, and all that music and all those memories emanated from that building. So I think that to me is incredibly special. And there are others around the country that are just striking. There's one in particular that I like in Livingston, Montana, that has this wonderful Art Deco kind of a vibe to it. It's almost like something out of Flash Gordon, but it's sitting there in a field with beautiful mountains in the background. And you see this thing and you understand why it's a national landmark, because it is just so special.
Rolando, how do you envision people using this book?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think for me, I see it as a source of inspiration for people. It is small enough that you can travel with it, and I would love people to dog-ear it and put sticky notes in it and do all of that. But to me, it's a book that you read and it gets you excited, and it changes, I would like to think, your perspective of how you perceive the built environment and the things that you see around you, and you begin to appreciate them. One thing that I've heard a great deal from people who have read the book is that it's giving them new appreciation for places in their hometown. Either places that are in the book and they said, hey, I saw you included it. I never thought that was special. I didn't know the backstory. Or they never paid attention to this stuff. And now they are looking for it wherever they go and sending me little notes. Hey, I saw this. What do you think about this? Will you put this in your next book? I'm like, sure. Thanks for the tip. So I want people to be inspired to get out there, to explore the country, to get to know their fellow American, and to support these places, to actually not only stop there and share a picture, but buy something, because that keeps these places alive so that more of them don't disappear before the next edition of this book.
The book is The Great American Retro Road Trip, a celebration of roadside Americana by Rolando Pujol. Rolando, thank you for talking with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Great questions. I really enjoyed my time.
If you would like to purchase The Great American Retro Road Trip, I've placed a link for you in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more books you might find interesting. I'm Dan Skinner. Thank you for watching this edition of Some Books Considered.